Hello, everyone. My name is Garvin, and I read things and natter about them on the internet for your entertainment. Before I get into the topic of today's video, just a quick note. Some folks have let me know that it has gotten kind of noticeable over the last videos. I am experiencing some software issues that's causing the mic to save at lower quality. I do apologize for that. I am working on that, and hopefully it will be resolved soon. Until then, thank you for your patience. Today we're covering the Aquaman film from 2018 and discussing not just the film, but how it links to Atlantis and the most classic of the Aquaman origins. I would also like to just make a note here. As of this recording, we've hit 162 subscribers, and I'd like to thank everyone who has joined me, as well as everyone who watched, likes, and comments, and of course, subscribes, because you are helping me in my eternal battle against the dread Lord Algorithm. Terror be on his name. I also want to thank my patrons. There's a link to the Patreon below, and you can join up for as little as $1 a month. The growth of this channel over the summer has been incredible. I started in June with something like 30 subscribers, so I just want to say thank you. Now, let's get to the movie, right? The film uses the origin that was mostly created in the Silver Age, but does pull in some parts from Aquaman's more recent runs. For example, we have the inclusion of the Atlantean Vulko as Aquaman's mentor, who shows up in his childhood to teach the boy how to succeed in the world of the ocean. We also have Mera, who is Aquaman's kind of co-hero in this story. Sidekick doesn't really describe what's going on here, because her job is to not play second fiddle, but to help him navigate Atlantis itself and the greater ocean. Now, the most popularly known version is where Queen Atlantia of Atlantis flees her home to escape an arranged marriage to a man she's not thrilled with, let's put it that way, and in doing so runs into a lighthouse keeper named Tom. They fall in love, and the result is Arthur Curry, half Atlantean, half surface dweller, and in this case, all working class hero who is here to punch bad guys, drink beer, and have a good time doing good deeds. My opinion here is Jason Momoa did a great job in this role. I really liked his performance. Another thing in this movie I want to note right off the bat, this movie shows Aquaman and his father Tom as having a very close, loving relationship, and despite having very limited screen time, it used that time to great effect and just sold me on this relationship. Great job there. I also really liked seeing a positive, supportive relationship between a father and son on screen for once, if I could just go ahead and say that. So this really worked for me here. I also really liked the complicated relationship Arthur, or Aquaman, as I'm probably just going to refer to him for the rest of this video for simplicity's sake, has with Atlantis, and this is personified in the complicated relationship with his half-brother, Orm. He views Atlantis as the place that killed his mother, and as a result, he has a lot of unresolved anger and resentment towards it. At the same time, it's also the home of his mother, and people like Vulko who supported and cared for him throughout his childhood. So he has this deep, abiding curiosity that he just can't let go of. This is part of his heritage, and he has mixed feelings about that. The movie does not spend nearly enough time in Atlantis for my taste, which I suppose I can understand why, because while what we saw was rather glorious to look at, to be fair to the special effects department, it couldn't have come cheaply. This Atlantis owes a lot to Edgar Cayce, way more than it does to anyone else I've covered in this video series. It's a bastion of high technology and scientific advancement. Honestly, it's amazing, and I enjoyed the 20 minutes out of the 2.5 hour long movie that I got to spend in Atlantis. I do feel a little cheated at that little bit of time. I want more Atlantis, DC. That's what I'm telling you. As for Orem, both of each other view the other has a rival and has someone with opposed goals that they have to defeat, but they don't like that. They feel conflicted about that. Both characters feel this way. This humanizes Orem to an extent, and considering his actions in the movie, he does need some humanization. But at the same time, both of them are very believable when they say, I feel conflicted about this, but my goals are overriding my feelings, and my conflict is not going to stop me from doing my best to kill you. The main plot line of the film is Aquaman's half-brother Orem is seeking to become Ocean Master. And just going off of what the film does, it treats this title as sort of the same way we would treat the title of Emperor, sort of like if someone, I don't know, reunited the Roman Empire or something like that. And Orem's going to achieve this by uniting the remaining 4 kingdoms of the original 7 nations of Atlantis. One of those nations has dissolved into a bestial state, and 2 of those nations have just disappeared. And this provides the driving motive to the plot. Mera and Aquaman are working together to thwart Orem from achieving this goal, because if he achieves it, he's going to wipe out civilization on the surface, and the movie makes it very clear that the Atlanteans militarily outweigh us by a lot. And they also outweigh us when it comes to technology. These are guys who are going to open up with tidal waves, basically, and that's not really something we can fight here. That said, I also found this as kind of the weakest part of the movie because there's just not enough time to focus on the different nations, and Orem's unification plot, which I'm supposed to see as this Game of Thrones level intrigue, I felt, really just boils down to a campaign of murder, intimidation, and conquest. Basically, his plan is conquer the ocean, then conquer the world. The film allows Orem to bring up a lot of, I feel, valid complaints, such as how the surface world dumps a lot of garbage and sewage into the ocean, and the surface world does that, yes. How our fishing fleets cause a lot of trouble for the Atlanteans, harvesting their own food resources rather ruthlessly and causing a lot of damage to their native ecosystem, which, yeah, that's a fair complaint. Now, I can see where Orem's coming from, and I'm not going to defend our rather crap environmental record as a civilization. And just for the record, I mean everybody when I say our civilization, okay? So let's not point fingers and start bickering. Let's just all admit, until really recently, we have a species have not done a great job, being responsible towards our environment. And let's just move on from there. But all of that said, Atlantis has maintained its very existence as a secret from the surface world. So no one even knows they're down there suffering. And look, my response is, how can I treat you with the appropriate respect and dignity you deserve if I don't even know you exist and you won't tell me? Plus, Atlantis is shown as this dream world with super technology. If I was sitting down to talk to someone from Atlantis and they were telling me this, my response is, dude, you have every right to be upset, but if you're that upset, just call us up and say, hey, listen, this pollution's not going to work. How about I offer you some alternative wonder tech? we will take it. And we're not asking for a handout here. We'll pay you for it. Seriously, these guys can build ships that travel at insane speeds underwater, don't seem to need to refuel or produce any exhaust. They have energy weapons that work underwater. Their warships are like aircraft carrier size. Their energy sources must be fantastic. Does anyone honestly think any government would turn this down, knowing that any rival country that says yes is going to jump centuries ahead of them? I know there's someone in the comments who's going to be like, ooh, the corporations would block this. And my response is, listen, buddy, no one's going to listen to ExxonMobil if that means letting the Chinese have rail guns and spaceships that could hit us from orbit. Just not going to happen. The fact that no one ever bothers to suggest this or even say, hey, have we considered showing up to talk to these idiots up top and offer them ways they can maintain a decent standard of living without turning our shared planet into a garbage dump, is kind of mind-blowing. They just went straight from, let's maintain our secrecy, to, damn these surface dwellers, they must all die. It's a little, sudden. Now, Mera and Aquaman's strategy to stop this genocide from occurring is to go on a quest to find the trident of the first great king of Atlantis, which kind of has some serious quest for Excalibur vibes here, because this trident has the same mythical significance to them that Excalibur would have to the people of England. Or, to be fair, if Excalibur was real and someone showed up with it in England, it would be rather significant to people in the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand as well. Although I don't think we'd be in a rush to crown someone King of America. Maybe. I really feel like they missed a beat here because Aquaman's name is Arthur. He's the bastard child of a former monarch seeking a magical weapon to prove his claim to the throne and bring peace to a troubled sea. There are a lot of parallels that could have been played with here. This quest eats up most of the movie and provides the basis for Mera and Aquaman's relationship because they really wouldn't have any reason to spend time with each other otherwise. And this relationship, I'm not really sold on it. I just don't feel it. Now, this may be due to the actress who plays Mera, and I have my own issues with her. And I'm not getting into that because, oh boy, that's a tangled mess. There's also an issue of a lot of the film's worst dialogue is put into Mera's mouth, and yeah, no one could have delivered a lot of that dialogue convincingly. So, I don't, your mileage may vary on that is what I'm saying. As if this film wasn't crowded enough, we cram in a third plot. This time with the classic Aquaman villain, Black Manta. Now, Black Manta has kind of a multiple choice background in the comic books. In fact, there are settings where Black Manta is on this savage crusade to ruin Aquaman's life and only then kill him, and Aquaman doesn't have the slightest idea why. Which I admit kind of makes me laugh. Maybe I'm a terrible person, but I find this idea of a character just hell-bent on vengeance against another character, and character B is just like, who is this guy and why is he so angry at me? It just seems funny to me. I can't explain that. But in the film, the story is a lot more straightforward. Black Manta and his father are mercenary pirates who, in the middle of a submarine hijacking, that's a thing in this movie, hijacking submarines, Aquaman shows up, rescues the sailors, beats up the mercenaries, but in the middle of the fight with Black Manta and his father, the sub starts sinking. Black Manta's father gets trapped, and Arthur decides to leave them to die because they're pirates. They he showed up and they were literally already killing and robbing people. He doesn't have that big of a responsibility towards them. And I don't blame Aquaman for his actions here. These guys are pirates, thieves, and murderers. I mean, he doesn't have an obligation to save the worst scum of the universe from their own actions, does he? You can debate that. At the same time, Aquaman learns that his lack of mercy, or alternative moral, unwillingness to just flat out murder his enemies, only causes more trouble down the road, because if he had rescued both of them, Black Manta wouldn't be throwing everything he has into killing him. This is an interesting plot with a lot to chew on, but it doesn't have the time to really be explored and grappled with because there's so much going on. And I really hate that, because this is one of those things where you can actually argue over what's the lesson Aquaman should have learned. If he had saved them, odds are Black Manta and his father would have went back to mercenary work, went back to pirating, and would have hurt more people, but Black Manta wouldn't be as dangerous or as driven, whereas if he had killed them, he'd be committing kind of cold-blooded murder, and that's, I agree, cold-blooded murder is bad. Having the film be an argument between these differing stances has we experiencing a brutal back-and-forth series of fights between Aquaman and Black Manta would have been an amazing movie. I just want to throw that out there. Now, don't get me wrong. I enjoyed this film. It was a wild ride. It had a lot of fun moments, and Jason Momoa playing a guy who enjoys being a hero, honestly, is pretty great. We don't need all heroes to be depressed, lonely people. It's cool to have heroes who are just living their best life and loving the adventure. I'm not saying you can't have depressed, lonely heroes. I'm just saying a variety of experience is a bonus. That said, this is not a great film. There's a number of plot holes and moments that make you go, wait, how does this work? The timeline on the things they do for the quest has me sitting here going, wait, so if A is from before the Sahara turned into a desert, why do you have to go to Roman ruins for step B? Who came back after Rome fell to set this up? I'm left with a lot of questions, is what I'm saying. I also think the film is suffering from trying to do way too much, way too quickly, which, to be fair, is a complaint I can address to almost the entirety of the DC movie universe in a lot of ways. That said, this is a fun movie to watch, and I don't feel like I wasted my time watching it. I would be happy to sit down with some popcorn and watch this again and just have fun. I feel like there's a lot in here that could have been done better. Hell, I kind of wish they had broken this story down into several movies, or at least two, so that the plot has time to catch its breath. But maybe that's just me. But let's get back to Atlantis. That's what this video series is about. So, just right off the bat, there is no Plato here. None. Plato has been jettisoned completely. There's no morality play, no overweening imperial ambitions causing doom. This is Donnelly and Edgar Casey's Atlantis. It is a high-tech wonderland that almost destroyed itself through reckless experimentation and ignoring safety protocols and basic workplace standards, if I'm going to be honest with you. Basically, Atlantis might still be the dominant civilization of the DC surface world in the films if they had developed OSHA. This is a very demystified Atlantis. Although the water powers and how Arthur talks to sea life is never really explained, but I'm prepared to just accept those as superpowers, equivalent to Superman flying through the air. This is a superhero movie. People are going to have superpowers. I can roll with that. Ironically, this makes this a very Americanized Atlantis, much like the DC Comics version in the comic books. This impression isn't helped by the fact that everyone speaks English, including characters who have been dead for tens of thousands of years. So, yeah, the guy they're looking for, he shows up in a recording and just starts going in perfect English, despite the fact that, the device is older than the English language. Atlantia, from the beginning of the movie, doesn't know what T is, but speaks perfect English to Tom. So it's not that, the movie is just translating for us. Atlanteans speak English. I'm not going to beat the movie up too much for this, because I feel like they just decided to just make the audience's life easier. Although, I would have done it differently, but there's a reason I'm not making movies for DC, I think. With that said, I think this is a good place to stop. If you haven't seen the movie, don't expect a classic, but if you're expecting just a fun time, you'll enjoy it. That said, I hope you found this video informative and entertaining. If you did, please leave a like, comment, or even subscribe. I'd like to shout out my biggest Patreon supporter, Big Steve. As always, thank you for your support, man. Next week, we are finally doing it. We are finally talking about Disney's Atlantis. I know some of y'all have been waiting all summer for this, and your patience is going to be rewarded. I hope all of you join me for that. But until then, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and of course, keep reading.